Hi, everyone. My name is Gunjan Syal. I'm the Transformation Executive at Emerald Technology Group, Inc. I have about 14 years of experience. I support clients on their transformation needs, mainly strategy, governance, program management. With me today, I have Maria Pronin. Maria, please introduce yourself. And while you're doing that, cheers. Cling.
Hi Gunjan, my name is Maria Pronin and I'm Cloud Solution Architect with Microsoft. My background, I come from a development background. I have about 15 years of experience in the IT industry. I took several roles, but I still love to write code.
Yes. That's
Yep,
that's the best way, right? The technology, the love for it.
for sure.
Absolutely. So, Maria, to get us started, maybe you can talk me through how do you define transformation in the work that you do these days and what you've seen in past? What is a transformation, a digital transformation to you?
Um, I would like answering this question. I would like to uh, step back and talk about the reasons
Hmm.
why digital transformation, and then we will move and talk about the digital transformation itself. As you all know, each company wants the competitive advantage and they want it to be sustainable. And this is what drives business right now. So the key factors is a good strategy. And what is good strategy now? The good
Hmm.
strategy now is a digital strategy to be able to bring value to your clients quickly.
Hmm.
So basically, I group all companies in three categories. One, the first one is well established enterprises that already have that competitive advantage and they would
Yes.
like to keep it. The second group is the dangerous group. They are the uh, innovators and the companies that basically are business disturbers. And we all know
Right.
the examples, like, for example, Netflix,
Hmm.
Uber, stuff like that. And
Yes.
the third group is business as usual companies, which are running old, good enough strategies. And in my opinion, eventually those businesses will become obsolete.
Yes.
So, uh, in my line of work, I had the chance to actually work in all three businesses, and I can say first two are really fun to work for
Hmm.
because you constantly improve, you constantly learn new things, and keep current.
Yes.
For a developer as myself, it is very, very crucial to be current
Yes.
because uh, what about market for assembler now? Almost none.
Hmm. Yes.
Still some, but to be competitive as a developer, you have to stay current, meaning that you have to work on current projects. It means that you have to work for a good company. Yeah,
Yes. It's a company that supports your lifelong learning, right? That's the idea.
absolutely, absolutely. This is the idea. So, and now talking about the big enterprises, big and old enterprises, for example, let's say banking business. We used to
Hmm.
go to the teller and do our banking tasks there. Now, what do?
Yeah.
We go online and complete those things without leaving the house. Same
Yes.
with shopping, same with getting your news. So basically, everything now can be done from your home, your computer, your cell phone application. This is
Yes.
completely new way how your end users communicate with business.
Yes. I think it's
And
the
this
user experience, right? It's increasing and delighting the customers through a superior user experience.
Uh, Yes, it's a superior user experience, and it's it's basically the main driver for digital
Yeah.
transformation. So basically, to stay current, to sustain your competitive advantage, you have to bring what your customer wants,
Yes.
meaning to give them the ability to communicate through all those new channels.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
this is what my understanding of drivers of transformation and reasons and
Mhm.
the current state of things.
That is
Yeah.
wonderful. And I'm sure there's many more interesting stories there as well, which we would love to hear. So, speaking specifically about DevOps, Maria, we were having an offline conversation about that earlier. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the role of DevOps how is it today, and how has it changed on transformations to enable all these changes that you talked about?
Sure. First, let me say that the core things that are very important for digital transformation in general is
Hmm.
the right team,
Hmm.
the team that actually team and the culture, the team that will buy in into that dynamic world, that they will be willing to learn every day, the team that is dynamic and willing to change direction
Yes.
quickly.
Yep. So a very
uh,
cohesive team.
yeah, also business processes that can enable this team to be that agile.
Yes.
And at the end, of course, the tools that will help the team to execute this dynamic strategy. So,
Yes.
and I think that DevOps maps really nicely into these concepts. So,
Yes.
um, going back probably 10 years ago, DevOps came from the idea of merging two teams,
Right.
developers and operations. Because what used to happen when we had that standard waterfall life cycle of development of the software, you
Right.
had your developers passing the code to testers and saying, okay, done, we are done
Yeah.
with that. So then the testers would do their work and pass it to deployment team and be okay, done, no more, no involvement. Then the next step would be okay, finally deployment team would deploy the code in production, and this is when operation team will start working on maintaining the existing production systems.
Right.
So, and if in any case operation team got into some issues, it would be very hard to go back to all those teams and pinpoint where the issue is.
Right.
So that's why, and obviously because of that, the time to market was extremely long. Like
That's
any
true.
change would take months and months, if not years. So releases were done like every half a
Mhm.
year, and it was a normal rate.
Yep.
So, and people started thinking, why don't we merge those teams and all the teams in between into one team and say, each engineer who writes the code is responsible to deploy it in production.
Right. It's
So
also the accountability that it gives that person, right?
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So each DevOps engineer was responsible to write the code, to automate the tasks, to make sure that it's deployable, and to make sure that it's working in production. This
Yes.
is the original idea where DevOps is coming from and where the name came from. But eventually, this nice idea
Hmm.
became much more than that. Like right now, there are several definitions of what
Yeah.
DevOps, but I really like the Microsoft's definition because I think it covers it all. Basically, it states that DevOps is a union of people,
Mhm.
processes, and tools that enables the company to bring value to the customer continuously.
That is
And
wonderful.
this is the key, continuously bringing the value.
Yes.
I think this is the key for DevOps as well as digital transformation.
That is wonderful. So one thing that I'm thinking of, Maria, as you explain this, how do you measure success of these teams when you're typically working on this? What are the KPIs typically that come into play?
So any DevOps like project will start, I would say, from first first stage would be okay. This is
Hmm.
a DevOps team, and these are the concepts.
Right.
You have to be okay with constant change.
Yes.
That's a must for a
Yep.
team member. And then after you get agreement with the team, you can start working on actual stages of DevOps. The
Right.
first the first is to achieve continuous integration.
Hmm.
And continuous integration, it it makes sure that each code change is integrated uh, every time. So
Right.
basically, it makes sure that very minimal changes are integrated in a common repository and tested.
Yes.
Uh, so basically, it makes sure that the quality, like it actually improves quality of code,
Hmm.
because each change, like once you check in your code, you
Yes.
can start your automated testing right away,
Yes.
and you'll see if there is a problem, you can actually undo the change.
Yes. So there's a backout process in place. Every
Oh,
time you're doing
absolutely.
these frequent
So
releases, you need to make
every
them.
also you can enable code review. It's a great
Yes.
practice to have at least 4 eyes for each merge and code check-in. So
Yes.
basically, you can set up the code reviewer uh, just to be safe before going into the
Production.
no, not product, like the code repository. We are not talking
Okay.
about
Yes.
production
That is
yet.
true. We're
Right
far
now,
away from that.
right now we are talking just about the code maintenance and
Got it.
how the actual development is done.
Wonderful.
So this is the first stage, continuous integration. So it gives you the full traceability of code, and it
Yes.
gives you the ability to revert, and it automatically it triggers automated um, tests. So
Yes.
hugely improved the quality of code.
Wonderful.
So the next stage, basically once the team achieves the continuous integration, is a continuous delivery,
Yes.
which actually means that you deploy your uh, continuously integrated code along with the infrastructure where it runs.
Right.
So the concept of uh, infrastructure as code plays a
Yes.
key role here. So basically, you deploy your application and you also deploy the infrastructure where it lives.
Wonderful.
And the key is repeatability here.
Yes.
And so basically, this enables you to deploy identical environments
Yes.
anywhere you want.
Yep. So standardize your CI/CD pipeline, essentially. I think that's what you're referring to, right?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Talking about CD only right now. The
Okay.
next stage is CI/CD. So
I'm
right
jumping
now
ahead.
I'm right now I'm like, we discussed CI first, and now we are
Yes.
discussing CD.
Yes.
And then the next stage would be actually CI/CD.
Wonderful.
So the next stage is you integrate your code and you deploy your infrastructure along with your code. This is
Yes.
the second stage. So basically, if the team achieved these two, you're
Yes.
ensuring that quality of your code is good and that you can deploy identical environments. So,
Yes.
which is already good because looking back like 10 years, these were huge problems that,
Yes.
for example, or making sure that my production environment is completely different from development environment, and
Mhm.
for some reason it works in one environment and not the other
Yes.
environment, the mismatch between the frameworks, it was horrible nightmare for
I remember
operations
those,
team.
Maria. It's
Yeah,
like
there you
the
go,
middle of
there
the
you
night.
go. Absolutely. So, so let's say we solved those issues. And
Yes.
finally, the next stage is CI/CD.
Yes.
So now that we have integrated all the code changes, we deploy our infrastructure as code. Now we are ready to actually deploy the code.
Yes.
So this is what we are doing in the, let's say, final stage of DevOps. So
Yes.
basically, as soon as a developer checks in the code, it's been revised by reviewers, it's been tested by the tests,
Hmm.
then infrastructure is delivered with the code, and at the same time it is deployed in production. So now we
Yes.
have the whole chain of what needs to be done between the code to being deployed in production.
That
So
is wonderful.
so by the time team achieves this, there is a very high chance that they will succeed in digital transformation
Yes.
because, as we discussed, it's repeatable, it's scalable, it's
Yes.
fast. So these are the
Quality controls are in place.
quality control is in place. So
Yes.
this is why it is much easier to implement new features,
Yes.
new functions, and to be introducing new things that are driven by your digital transformation
Yes.
strategy. So
So I
this
think,
is,
Maria,
yeah, sorry.
sorry, go ahead. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, finish
Um,
that thought.
I lost it. Go ahead.
Oh, oh, sorry. I was going to say that, thank you so much for describing the different stages and what's important at each stage. What I'm wondering is what's the role of business teams when the technology team is basically working through this process?
I would actually not divide those teams
Hmm.
into like technology team and a
Yeah.
business team. Like we talked about the fact that being dynamic and responsive is a key factor. So
Yes.
again, would not like I would like to stress that DevOps is not about technology. It's about
The company
business
coming together.
strategy,
Yes. Yes.
and the business strategy includes all the teams,
Yes.
business or technology. Like I like to think that DevOps enables to do like why we are changing, and
Yes.
tools tells you how. And I
Yes.
like to separate those two things. And business drives the change. They
Right.
do the research, they do their marketing, they do
Yeah.
their standard things that they usually do, and they bring their insights to development teams. They write new requirements, and actually
Right.
um, the last stage of DevOps process is actually continuous monitoring and learning.
Right.
So once you achieve the continuous deployment, CI/CD,
Mm-hmm.
you should still keep monitoring and learning what's required and needed, and actually react to those needs, and again uh, introduce those new features as needed. So that's why in a DevOps setup, with that digital transformation strategy, it's
Mm-hmm.
all melted together, technology and the business.
Wonderful.
This is how I see it.
That is great because I want to stress, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of the companies that fall into the third category that you talked about are very siloed, right, at times.
Absolutely.
And DevOps is usually seen as something that technology teams are driving. But as you said, that's not necessarily true. Then it's more about the tools as opposed to
Absolutely.
bring the business strategy together.
Absolutely. Like for me, DevOps is not about
Right.
Jenkins pipelines or,
Yes.
I don't know,
Any tools, really.
artifacts or any tools. Like
Yeah.
you're free to use whatever tools work for you.
Yeah.
Like just to embrace this whole culture of DevOps, uh, being dynamic and reactive and
Yeah.
proactive and everything else together.
Yes. Well, as Microsoft says, right, build communities. The communities
Absolutely.
could be inside your company, or they could be a group of people. Even your users could be part of that community to help you achieve this.
Absolutely. The key is
Yes.
continuous delivery of value to your
Yes.
customer. That's the key.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, just continuously deliver value.
Yes. And clearly defining that as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I'm wondering, Maria, about you personally, since you've explained everything about your profession, the way that you work, the way you see DevOps, we're so remote these days, right? We're practicing what's called social distancing right now to flatten the curve. So with that in mind, when you first start DevOps, it's important, when you first start Agile, it's important to be co-located. I've heard this many times that it helps to be co-located to start this
Actually,
process.
actually, we have really nice tools now. You don't
Mhm.
have to. I'm
Okay.
working from my home, you're working from your home, and
Yes.
it feels like we are co-located. We are having coffee together, right?
Yes.
So it's not really about being in one physical place anymore. Like I had the chance to work in the office
Right.
remotely, and it just takes some time to getting used to one or the other. But I think
Yes.
with the technology that we have right now, it's not really a problem.
Yeah.
As long as people do like the idea and they want to embrace it,
Yeah.
remotely or otherwise, it doesn't matter. Like in
Yeah.
my opinion.
So I think the way that I see is this is the part where the culture of the company comes into play, right? If your leadership supports and trusts the people to do the right thing, then it doesn't matter, as you said, if whether you're remote or whether you're in person. So it's what does it take to build that culture?
Um, from my experience, it seems that the idea has to go from the leadership. Like
Right.
the leadership team must clearly understand why they are doing it
Yes.
and leave the how to the technical teams.
Wonderful. I like
Yeah.
that.